Hello, my name is Scott Chacon. I'm the CEO of Git Butler, and I also happen to be a certified wine expert. Today on Bits and Booze, we're going to be talking to Mattias about making your Git config as comfortable as this front porch. Enjoy. Welcome to another Bits and Booze. Today we're going to be talking about Git config. And you're really just a patsy here. I'm just going to tell you about my Git config. Or we could set it up and pretend that you were really interested in my Git config.
I am.
But you just read a blog post that I published on the Git Butler blog a while ago.
I did.
And you were begging me. You're like, Scott, please walk me through all of these Git config settings that even core Git developers mostly think should probably be the new defaults.
Spot on.
This is Bits and Booze. We've filmed a couple of these, and all we're left with is one non-alcoholic beer and one alcoholic beer from two different ones. So we're not going to go over the booze that much in this particular episode. I have a nice Naked Brillo, Berlin-based non-alcoholic beer. You got a nice Corona. And we're going to get into, cheers, by the way. We're going to get, you didn't look me in the eye. What are you doing?
I'm so sorry.
How long have you lived in Berlin now? This is a German thing. You have to look people in the eye when you cheer. In the eye, in the eye.
In the eye.
Okay, thank you. So.
Glad we got that right.
But I did a blog post. It's been fairly popular, so we thought it'd be nice to kind of actually walk through and show examples of what these Git config settings do. I have a global.git config that I've set up a bunch of stuff in over the years. A lot of it came from settings that in the Git mailing list, they've kind of argued, should these be the new defaults in Git 3.0 or whatever. And so I want to walk through what they are. You should probably turn them all on. Most of them are really valuable, but I'll show kind of what everything does. So let's take a gander. Let's take a look at my Git config file. So this is actually my Git config file, my global Git config file. So I think in the previous episode you said the only thing in your global Git config file. I'm curious actually what's in yours now. This is like every developer at the start of a conference should show their Git config file to show what kind of person they are.
I think the absence of things in my Git config might be telling of the kind of person I am.
Maybe you only have two things. You just have username, user, email.
Yes, it's actually name and email, not username.
User.name and user.email.
User.name, that's correct.
So here's my Git config. I have my user.name, my user.email, obviously. I have some GPG stuff that I'm not, it's set to false right now. I'm not doing that. I have two aliases. So I think one of the things I didn't go into in the blog post that is a big Git config thing, but it's not, should this be a default or something, is should you use short ones, right? Like I have st for status-s, so if you've never run, so this is the normal output of, this is the normal output of git status, right? Is you have all this crap. If you do git status-s, it just kind of simplifies things. So if you have a lot of things touched, it just kind of gives you one list of stuff. So I have that to git st because it's nicer for me to see, okay, what am I doing with that, all the crap in there. And then I have LOL, which I've always had. That's my longest running one, which is log one line graph all. So you can do git LOL, and it kind of simplifies sort of the log to say, here's all the crap, right?
Beautiful.
But we're not going to get into those. We have some Git Butler, some LFS stuff. What we're going to get into are these ones. So these config settings are the ones that I argued in the blog post should be probably defaults, or at least a lot of them. And so we'll go through them, talk about what they are, and I'll sort of uncomment them as we go through them.
Let's do it.
So do you know what the first, I'll quiz you, actually. Last time you quizzed me, I'll quiz you.
All right.
Do you know what the first two of these do? Column UI auto?
I have a feeling I could answer the first one at least, column. In my mind, that might be related to listing branches.
Right. So normally when you do git branch, it looks like this, right? So it's kind of showing you a whole bunch of branches. It is alpha ordered. So it's just going to show you them in alphabetical order, and it's going to show you a great big huge list of them.
Which hardly is ever useful.
You know, if you have a lot of branches, right, it's like, okay, I have a whole bunch of branches here. So the first one is column.ui auto. So I'm directly just editing my git config. If you had set this, you'd do git config -- global column.ui space auto, right? And then it's set it in your file this way. But we'll just go through and do this. So if you have that set and you run git branch, it does exactly the same thing because my branches are very, very long. Let's see. We'll make it much smaller. So now it'll put them into columns, right? So it'll kind of give you a whole bunch. So here, if we run git branch again, git. Let me just get rid of this dumb one. So it's gonna put them into columns. And git sort, actually, let's take this one out again, and we'll see what branch.sort. So there's a couple different ways that now you can sort branches, and you can set a config setting for this. And I'm doing it here by reverse committer date, so it's a minus and then committer date. And then if you run git branch again, it puts them in a different order, right? So actually, where side B was the last one previously, side B is now the first one. And the reason why, and it's not doing it by alphabetical order anymore. It's doing it by what was the last commit that somebody did. And it's committer date, so it's if you rebase it, it makes it more recent.
You know, this is very useful. But I wish there was a way of setting this on github.com. I sometimes go into the UI, I click on the little thing, sort of above the code on the left side. You see all the branches. I see all the branches, and they are alphabetically sorted.
Yeah, this has bugged me for a really long time, the thing. So this is so if you put them both together, then it'll do both, right? It'll put them in columns, and it'll show you most recent sort of in the left column, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so that's that. The other thing that actually bugs me about this is also git column.ui will also do tags. So if we look at our tags, it'll put them into columns as well. But one of the things that you can notice here is this, right? Nightly 0.5.40 is before 400, right? And then 41 is after 409. So it's not ordering them, it's ordering them alphabetically. It's not ordering them by sort of how you would normally order tags. Or like this, right? 1.0, then 10.0, and then 2.0. And so if you do sort, tag.sort, and then version ref name, it will try to sort it a little bit more normally. So if we run git tag now, and we look at that, you can see it does it the way that you would expect it, right?
Right.
So .9 and then .1.
My only question about this is the version :ref name. Is that like an expression, or is that just like a known flat, like a known version ref name? Because I think it was ref name version is the way it's actually printed.
You know what? I don't know. I just blindly put this in. It's a great question. I have no idea what all the options to tag sort are. We could look them up. This is the one that somebody told me this should be a default, and I threw it in there, and now tags are always sorted correctly on the command line. So the next one is the default branch. So if you go somewhere and you run git init, blah blah blah, it's going to give you all of this crap, right?
Okay.
So Git used to just use master as the name, and then people started not liking master, and so but they didn't want to do something reverse, sort of that was not backwards compatible. Seems better. Like that. And so now it has all of this crap that it spits out. That's like, okay, we are still going to use master, but we might change at some point in the future. If you want to do something, then set this thing. And so it bugs me every time that we do this. So if we go in here and we just set it to main, or we set it to master, or set it to whatever you want.
So they didn't change the default behavior, they just made it more annoying.
Yes. That's exactly what they did. And so you'll get this every single damn time that you init anything. So if you set the thing, set it to whatever you want, it'll stop complaining when you git init something. The other one, this took me a little bit of time to set up. This is hard. This is more of a corner case. But there's a whole bunch of difference algorithms that are in Git, right? And so the default one, if you run git diff, you see what it looks like? I set something up specifically to be a little confusing here. So I took a block and I moved it underneath another block that's similar, and now it gets a little bit confused as to what happened, right?
I'm a little bit, like, even looking at this, I'm a little confused. It looks like you simply change the order, but they happen to have one property in common, and so it looks like...
So this is Meyer's algorithm, which is a really old algorithm. They also have patience and histogram and something else. I forget what the other one is. But you can change the algorithm that diff uses by default. The best one, I think, generally understood is histogram. It's the newest one. It's similar to patience.
Yeah.
And so now if we run git diff on the same thing, then we get something that makes more sense,
that
right?
Looks
So
clear.
this is clearly what I did. I removed it from one and I moved it down.
Yeah.
And so the difference algorithm is a little bit smarter about showing you what you probably more expect to see from a human standpoint.
But I don't really want to move on just yet. Like, I'm just curious. Patience sounds like that's an expensive algorithm.
It is slightly more expensive.
Slightly more expensive. I feel like that's the one I naturally want to use.
Yeah.
Yeah. But histogram, how does that make sense? What does it do? Why is it called histogram?
It's a riff off of Patience, so it's similar to Patience, and I honestly have absolutely. This is another one that I blindly apply.
You blindly apply histogram. It feels like it should mean something. Histogram.
It does. I'm sure. I don't know what the difference in the implementation is. There's some papers online. If you read about Patience was the original. So you should read about Patience because histogram works very similarly.
Yeah.
And it's just a slightly better optimization, I'm told.
Right.
But it's not noticeably different expense-wise. Like I don't think you would notice it if you're running it on the command line somewhere. Yeah. And it tends to come out with better diffs.
I do want to go on a little bit of a tangent here. Yeah. We can do it now or later.
Let's do it now.
Let's do it now. We currently have in production, we have a Git Butler bug.
Yeah.
That is related to the algorithm in diffing. And from observations, sometimes if you imagine a text file and you have a new line, you have a block of content and a new line underneath.
Yeah.
If you remove that whole paragraph, you go from having 2 new lines content to just having 1 new line.
Yeah.
And we've noticed that there is a difference in whether or not the algorithm suggests you remove the first new line or the second new line.
Yeah.
And now we have this situation where one part of our code produces one thing and the other one produces another. And now I'm thinking, this sounds like it's related to the algorithm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious how we produce the diffs, because I think we do them in libgit 2 or in Git Oxide.
We used to. Git Oxide actually uses another third-party diffing algorithm. Okay. One that supports, I believe, all of these.
I see.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what algorithm we use. I mean, on the server, so when we do like the review stuff, we do run git diff, like we shell out to git diff and actually run that. So we actually probably want to turn this on as a global option on our server so that we have better sort of diff. But it's going to be actually, interestingly, it may not match up to what the client says necessarily, right? Because the algorithm, I mean, the code difference is the same, but how to show the differences is. Like if you apply these as patches, it'll end up with the same code both ways. Exactly. It's more what's easier to read as a human being.
Yes.
Yeah. So the other thing you can do is you can have it on the command line color moved. So I moved this block, this H1 down, and then I added a line, right? So if you say color moved, it colors it a little bit differently, right? So the purple to blue is kind of the code that it moves. Yep. And then the green says, now, and you also added this line, which is also kind of cool. So if you turn all these things on, I think in the end, you just get nicer diffs. Yep. And otherwise you barely notice it, but it's a pretty cool thing. There's also this one, mnemonic prefix and renames. So mnemonic prefix is really subtle. It's something that I find kind of nice, which is this sort of diff header when you do a diff. It always defaults to A and B of just kind of what are the names of the sides. And you can give it sort of names of sides and stuff like that to diff. But if you say mnemonic prefix, it replaces it with I and W, meaning I is your index and W is your working directory. Yeah. And so if you can diff to like a commit to your working directory or an index to your head or something like that, and it'll say this is the commit and this is the index or whatever. So it's pretty stupid, but it is kind of nice. And then push. So push.default is simple. And this is what essentially how what Git does when you push, when you run git push, right? So if I go into, hold on one second, I forgot where I was. If I go into website marketing.
This gives me vibes of you have no upstream tracking something.
Right.
Something.
So if I run git push, it'll do this, right? It's like, okay, I don't know what you're pushing to. Like you can do this auto setup remote if you want. So I'm on side B is not on the server. It doesn't have a tracking branch. And so if you don't have, by default, it's going to make you run this every time you have a new branch that it doesn't know on the server, right? If you say auto setup remote, which is kind of what it told you to do, oopsie. And then you run git push, it's just gonna set it up for you and push it, right? So I love, actually, it took me a really long time to find, you know what's really funny is it tells you in the help output to set this config setting, and I never set it because I just ignore any of this stuff that comes out. I essentially don't read, and so I never even knew it was a thing, even though it tells me every time, here's how to not be like pissed off about this every time that you run git push. But yeah, so this is a really, I love the setting. It's my favorite of the settings because it's the one that hits me the most. And then the other thing you can do is follow tags so that every time you push, it also tries to push any tags you have. So actually, let's turn it off real fast. And then git tag. If you git push, it's not going to push the tag by default, right? If you say follow tags and you push, even if you're pushing your branch or whatever, it's also going to push tags. Any tags it sees that's not on the server, it's automatically going to push them. So I've actually run into this a lot where I'll create some tag and I'll forget to manually push it. And so if you turn this off, any tags you create, it puts on the server, which I think helps most of the time. And then fetch. So fetch kind of has, these are more optional. I put this under clearly makes Git better, but it's not always true. It depends on turning them on after you've had a repository for a while is kind of a pain in the ass. But like if I go to Git Butler and I fetch, it's going to fetch all of the branches, right? If I turn on -- or all, and I save this and I run fetch. So I have two different remotes on here, right? And so if I say git fetch, and I have that turned on, it's going to fetch from all of the remotes that it sees, instead of just the one that happens to be tracking, right? The branch that I have.
Can we make it just fetch from one, even if you have two remotes?
I have absolutely no idea.
Okay, I thought that's what you were going to tell me next, but let's.
So again, don't turn it on if you feel like you're going to get bugged by it. And then prune is another good one. I think we had this conversation as well. If you fetch and the branch is tracking something locally and it's been deleted from the server, it will delete it locally as well. So we can do. Let's see if it does anything. I'm actually not sure if I have some prunable branches. It doesn't.
Is the default then a bit of a Is the default then a bit of not a memory leak, but like you'll be accumulating branches until you do this manually?
Yeah. So actually, I might have said this a little bit misleadingly. It will prune remote references that aren't on the server anymore. But yeah, and then prune tags is the same thing, but for tags. So if you have tags that are local that it doesn't see on the server, I'll probably get an error here. Yeah, so it'll reject ones that it can, but it tries to. It sees all of the ones that are on the server, and it'll try to remove stuff that has been removed from the server locally. So again, the prune tags can be a problem because if you end up in a state where you do have a tag locally that would be clobbered because of it was deleted in one place and not the other, or they are unmatching things, it will stop a pull. So it won't actually run the pull because it'll have an error code. So you have to be a little bit careful with that one. If you get into a state, you can fix the state, obviously, but if you get into that state, then the pull stops working. So it's.
I think for the benefit of the audience, I might have to ask, what does the word clobber mean? I saw it on the screen. It will be clobbered, but I have no idea.
It's like, isn't that what? I mean, you've seen the Fantastic Four movies?
Yes, I have.
That's the thing. He's like, it's clobbering time. It's like time to bash a bunch of shit.
Like to make it go away.
Yeah, to just roll over it, right? Yeah. So it's like it doesn't want to. It has one, and it doesn't want to overwrite it with something else, and so it gets pissed.
I feel like overwrite might be a better word in that case. Might be.
Well, I think
violent. It's like overwrite, but in a violent way. Yeah.
I think in this case, what happens is it sees that I have a tag that doesn't match the tag that was deleted on the server, and so it doesn't want to remove something that might be losing data, right? So I actually have those out, but you can put them in if you want. The fetch.prune I think is a good idea because you do want. I want my local versions of remote branches to always match kind of what's on the server as closely as possible.
I'm very curious about this. Why the hell not section?
Yeah. So why the hell not? So again, these are ones that you may like, you may not like. It depends on a bunch of different factors. So I'll do a couple of them, or I mean, we can go through all of them if you want.
Yeah.
One is autocorrect, right? So by default, if you type like this, right? It's going to say, I don't know what you're talking about, but I did find a command that is very similar to the command that you did. You can also set this to always, help.autocorrect always, and then if you do it, oops, not always.
So basically,
immediate.
Oops.
So if you do autocorrect immediate, then and you type something and it has a match, then it'll just immediately run it, right? It's not gonna stop. By the default is to stop and say you probably meant this. The one that I like is prompt. So if you do prompt and you do the same thing, it's gonna stop and it's gonna say, is this what you want to do? It'll default to no, so you have to type yes, right?
This sounds like it would be helpful if you're coding drunk.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that you need to do when you're coding drunk. This is one of many. Have you ever seen those apps where you think you're calling like an ex and it doesn't let you do it, right? Because, or like actually sending emails is the worst.
Right.
Sending emails is the worst. Yeah. If you've had a night and you're like, you know who I'm mad at, and I'm gonna let them know. So this one is, I don't know if you have this turned on. If you let's see, do I have? Okay, I have differences here.
Which one is this?
Which is so this is, then we're gonna do commit verbose.
Verbose.
So verbose commits. So if you commit, it's gonna do this, right?
Yeah.
So
familiar screen.
It's like, here's the changes you're gonna be committed, write your commit message, but everything with a hashtag in the front is stripped out. So this isn't actually part of your commit message. Yeah. It just tells you, here's kind of what the short status is, so that you have some concept of. Yeah. And I think interestingly, it also. Oh no, it doesn't. So let's abort that, and we'll try it with this turned on. So if you have the verbose committing turned on, instead of running git status, it will run git diff. Mm-hmm. And so it puts actually all of the differences that you're about to commit, and it cuts everything. This weird sort of cut line here, everything under that, whether it has a hashtag in front of it or not, is cut out.
Yeah.
So you can, it doesn't really matter, but it's like saying, if you want a real large example of everything that is going into this patch, so that you can describe it properly, here's a reminder for that. So I like that actually. It's more verbose, obviously. But you can turn it on and see if it bugs you, but it can be very nice. The rerere stuff is reuse a recorded resolution. So if you have a merge conflict and you fix it, and then you get the same exact merge conflict again, so you're rebasing something, you get the same thing. This happens a lot with like mailing list based things, because they're kind of rebasing the same series many times, right? Yeah. And so they get the same conflicts over and over and over again. Yeah. And so this essentially records the way that you resolved it, and if it sees the same thing, it can apply it from a database.
I'm interested in this just a little bit, because I've heard of rerere many times, and I'm just wondering, is there like a canonical example of a merge conflict you've seen before that you wouldn't do again?
It's not that it pretty much has to be the exact same merge, right? Or a rebase.
I think that's the perspective from which I'm confused. Yeah. Like, how often do you end up with the exact same merge conflict?
Well, you might have to redo it, right? So you might have done it and gone through it and then been like, actually, I don't want to merge it.
Right.
I want to unmerge it, sort of, right? Like, let's undo that merge and then pull in some more work and then do the merge again, and then it'll remember everything you did. So if I did set up a thing here. If we merge side A in and we get a conflict, you can see this recorded pre-image, right? And then you go in and you fix it. So, whatever. Oops. Okay. And then it says, hey, I recorded the resolution for this. And then we reset.
I see.
And then we merge again.
This is the canonical use case.
Then, yeah, so in this case, I don't have to redo, like if I look at the README file, it already has the solution in it, right? And it just says, hey, I saw that you had a previous resolution. You've already solved this problem. So I have a database of it. I'm just going to apply that, and now you can move forward, right? You can pretty much turn it on. Worst case, it takes up a little bit more room on disk. Actually, if you want to see actually what it does, it's in this RR cache, and it just kind of keeps. So this is sort of a SHA of what left side and right side looked like. And it SHAs that, and then you can kind of look at, okay, what did...
Can you cat just one of those? Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so this is what essentially what it looked like beforehand, and then that's the pre-image, and then post-image this is what it looks like after the fact.
Yeah.
So it's pretty simple, but it's not a lot of data. There's not a lot of disk space. It's kind of the worst that happens, right? Okay. And actually, I'm going to turn this off for now so that I can try the next thing, because now I have actually...
Can we focus on the core line here for a second? Yeah. Excludes file.
Yeah.
I feel like in the last episode, you told me that there is a default, that you don't have to turn this on explicitly. And the default would be home directory .gitignore.
Yeah.
And I see that you have explicitly defined this option. So I'm curious. Is it default, or do you?
Now we'll look this up. Yeah, so it looks in .git/info/exclude.
Yeah.
This is the default. Sorry, that's in your local one. The defaults for the global ignore file are your home directory /git/ignore, which is what I said.
Yeah.
And then the one I think I did remember at some point was it's also under .git config, but it will look here first, and then it'll look here, and then if this isn't set, but if you set this, it will only look here.
Yeah.
So I like it in tilde.gitignore because it's the same file name, and it's easier for me to remember where it is. But again, you don't really, you can put it in one of those other two places, and it'll do the same thing. But this is just an override if you like it there better. And then the last thing is the rebase stuff. So again, this is why the hell not, because it depends on if you rebase or not, right? So if you have a rebase heavy sort of way of doing stuff, it only makes sense to turn these on because it helps the rebase mechanism. So I think there's probably been some episode where we talked about auto squashing, right? By default, you have to do --auto squash or -- update refs, which is when you rebase something, all of the branches that are in the line that you're rebasing all get moved over rather than just the tip. So most of these things just make sense to have turned on anyways if you're doing rebasing. But I won't do a demo of that. The last one I'll do a demo of, and then this is also depending on if you rebase or not. If you run git pull -- rebase every single time, you can set pull.rebase true, and it'll always run git pull will just assume -- rebase.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually feel like that I should turn that one on. I'm a rebaser.
Yeah, I mean, you're using Git Butler, but but yeah. And then the last one that we'll go through is this merge conflict style. When you do a merge, then you get this, right? Which is here's what's in head, here's what's in the one that we're merging in. But if I turn this on, this is zdiff3 conflict style. So merge.conflict style zdiff3, or you can also do diff3. Zdiff is zealous diff, so it's slightly better, again, in a way that I don't entirely know what the algorithm difference is. But it was introduced, I don't know, 5 years ago, so it's probably, most people probably have that. But now when you merge with that, then the diff looks like this, which is, what was, I mean, this is a bad example because there was nothing in the ancestor, but like if you had it does have a SHA in there.
It does. The Git Butler one does not.
Oopsie. Well, so yeah, I guess that's an easier way than running git merge base, but you can also run git merge base, but it would say something like this, right? Like, here's what was in the original, here's what side A did, here's what side B did, so now replace this entire block with something. And all of the diff programs know this as well, like it can parse this format as well. But if you prefer to see what it originally was, if you have a really big merges, like sometimes it's a lot of data on one side, a lot of data in the middle, and a lot of data on the other side, and so it can make things really complicated. But yeah, that's the other thing. So that is my config file.
Awesome.
Thanks for letting me yell at you about all of the Git config options and waiting for me to set up all of my examples.
I just feel a little embarrassed that I don't use any of these.
Which one would you use?
Well, I mean, I feel like immediately if I wasn't using Git Butler, I would use the pull section. I think the commit section 100%, push section 100%. Diff, all of these. It's just that with Git Butler, none of these are a concern of mine any longer.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. There's times when we can't use Git Butler anyways, which is, SSHing to a server for now or something like that, right? If you don't have a desktop to run it on. I think what's interesting is to learn from, like, I've taken inspiration from what is here that I have a problem with in core Git, so that, and be cognizant of that when we're creating a GUI or when we're creating a new tool, to be like, these are the things that should be defaults because it makes this type of workflow better, or it helps with this sort of UX, and be like, ideally we would make it so none of these are interesting because we're already solving these same problems. Like the committer date thing, I think this is like one of the first things that we were talked about when we were doing branching in Git Butler, is saying we really want to order them by the last time that they were active, and not by here's like an alpha ordered list of all of your branches or whatever, right? Or here's the ones that have interest in, like, what are the questions that you're asking about these things?
I think the alpha ordering is a bit of a pet peeve of mine, but only because I use it in GitHub.
Yeah. Or there's things that Git Butler doesn't do right now, like the tagging. Like we don't do tagging, so you have to do tagging and look at tags and stuff through Git. There's 100,000 Git config options too. Like, these are just the ones that I have set that I think make using Git on a daily basis nicer.
But I think as early as 2008, I remember having this like very explicit thought, and I sort of asked myself, I have a bunch of friends who take pride in configuring their environment. And they would want to show off, look, like I have this Linux distribution, here's sort of like my dot file setup, it all means that when I like do these things, it comes out this way, and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. But I feel like already in 2008, I intentionally took a different track, where I told myself, there's a million, I on a daily basis, I use a million different things. And on a monthly basis, a bunch of new things are introduced. And so I thought, like, rather than spending time configuring my environment, how about I become really good at adapting to the defaults? And I think, like, I have not really revisited this thought much, but to this day, I do identify with the idea that, like, whatever it is that you want to give me, program X, Y, or Z, I'm just going to become good at like handling that, because once I'm done with this, I'm going to have to move on to a different program and then to a different program.
That's actually how I got this list for the most part. Is there was a thread many years ago on the Git mailing list where they were like, let's do a challenge and let's like spring cleaning. Let's everybody, all the core Git developers, turn off everything in .git config, right? Like don't have any Git config settings, and you can turn one on a day, right? And then figure out what is the most important one and then they were like, let's just distill that into, maybe we should just make these the defaults, because otherwise it's more painful to use than it should be, right? And what are the ones that you really, really want to have turned on?
Right.
And almost all of these came from different people answering that challenge. So I do think it's a good, if you have anything sort of super configurated, to figure out, like, and you're working on that thing, like maybe those should be the defaults, right? I mean, we can even think about this from the perspective of building a GUI, of saying, like, if we go into the settings and there's things you can turn on and off, right? Like, which ones do we go in and then immediately turn on and be like, okay, well, should we consider trying to make that more of a default, or anyways, it is an interesting question. So go in, delete all your Git config files, settings, figure out what's a pain in the ass now. But otherwise, throw all these in there, and then you have maybe a lot of these will be defaults in Git 3 anyways. Cool. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for drinking all of our beer. Now I think we have to end the episode because we're out of beer. So
I think my eyes might be giving it away. Thanks so much. Right.
Thanks for joining us on this Bits and Booze. Have a better Git Config. Subscribe if you want to watch us, drink wine and beer and talk about dumb Git shit. And thanks for joining us. See you next time.